Welcome to Core Concept HQ, the place where we break down the world's most powerful books, from personal growth and psychology to philosophy, business, finance, and even sports.
Each video brings you the key insights and timeless lessons, all in a few minutes.
Let's dive in. So today we're jumping into a stack of sources that, honestly, they really change how you look at getting ahead financially. We're often told that managing money is, like physics, all hard science, formulas, finding the optimal strategy.
Right, precise calculations. But the core idea we're exploring today is that real-world results, they're often kind of strange, definitely counterintuitive, because financial success, it's actually a soft skill. It's much, much closer to psychology, to behavior, than it is to any spreadsheet formula.
Yeah, it's less about your IQ score or, how many degrees you've got hanging on the wall.
Exactly. It boils down to, well, simple behavioral stuff, competence in how you act.
And the source material kicks off with these two. Just, wow, really stark examples that nail this idea right away. Let's start with Ronald Reed. Ever heard of him?
Vaguely, the janitor, right?
Yeah, a janitor and gas station attendant. Rural Vermont, first person in his family to finish high school. Lived super simply.
Okay.
Bought a small house for like $12,000. Saved whatever tiny bit he could from his paychecks.
And the key was he consistently invested those small savings. Didn't try to get rich quick, mostly just blue chip stocks.
No big score, no fancy leverage plays, no changing strategy when things got weird. He just waited.
For decades.
Decades. And when he died, age 92, guess his net worth?
A few $100,000 maybe, given his job?
Over $8 million.
Wow. Okay, $8 million from a janitor. Just pure patience.
Now flip that coin. Richard Fuscome?
The other end of the spectrum.
Totally. Harvard-educated, high-flying exec at Merrill Lynch, the whole package. Retired wealthy in his 40s.
Living the dream, supposedly. Big mansion.
Huge. 18,000 square feet, 7 garages. Apparently costs like $90,000 a month just to keep the place running. Crazy debt load.
So he had all the credentials, the education, the experience that Ronald Reed didn't have. Everything.
But when 2008 hit, boom.
Let me guess, bankrupt.
Completely.
Right.
Crushed by the debt, couldn't sell the huge house fast enough. The highly educated, experienced executive, he was greedy, impatient.
While the janitor, Reed, was humble, patient. And that difference in behavior just completely wiped out the massive gap in, education and experience.
It's kind of mind-blowing how often the person with less formal know-how wins just by having a better handle on their emotions, their temperament. So let's dig into this idea that finance is really a behavioral game. First up, the source material talks about the subjectivity of risk, saying, no one's crazy.
Yeah, this is huge.
Well,
why do people make money decisions that look completely nuts to the rest of us?
Right. You see it all the time.
It's because every single person, you, me, everyone, we're operating with our own unique mental model of how the world works, especially when it comes to risk. And that model, it's shaped almost entirely by our personal history, our own experiences.
So what feels like a normal, reasonable risk to you is basically anchored to what you lived through, maybe especially when you were like a young adult starting out.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter how smart you are now or how much you've learned since then. Those early experiences they stick.
That makes sense. You see that with different generations, right? Like people who grew up during really high inflation.
Yeah, they probably see holding cash or bonds as super risky because they watched their value just melt away.
But someone who grew up when prices were stable, they see cash and bonds as, the safe default.
Precisely. Your financial truth is just what your environment taught you early on. It feels universal, but it's deeply personal.
Okay, and this perspective helps explain something that, well, it drives statisticians crazy. The lottery ticket thing.
Oh, yeah. The paradox. You look at the numbers, and the lowest income households spend, what is it, like $400 a year on average on lottery tickets?
Which is like 4 times what the highest income folks spend.
And often these are the same people who couldn't easily cover a $400 emergency expense.
So if you're just looking at a spreadsheet, it looks totally illogical, destructive even. Why throw money away on something with such terrible odds when you need every penny?
Because we're focused on the math, the odds.
Yeah.
But the person buying that ticket, they might be buying hope.
Explain that.
Well, think about it. If you feel trapped, if saving up a meaningful amount feels impossible, if getting a better paying job seems out of reach, And you see other people with nice things, security, vacations, stuff you feel you can never attain.
Like the system's rigged against you.
Right. That lottery ticket isn't really about the probability of winning.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe paying a few bucks for the only tangible way you can dream of getting that different life.
Yeah.
That good stuff everyone else seems to have.
It's a ticket to a fantasy almost.
Exactly. A brief escape from a tough reality.
Yeah.
So while it's financially irrational, maybe it's psychologically understandable, even justifiable from their perspective.
Wow. Okay. Few decisions are made purely on logic. Ego, history, emotions. They're all mixed in. All right, so if our personal history kind of messes with our view of risk, how do we actually build wealth? This gets us to the next big idea, compounding and the huge value of time.
Or as the source puts it, sometimes the best strategy is just to shut up and wait.
Ah, love that.
Compounding is it's fundamentally counterintuitive.
Yeah.
The really massive results often come from things that seem tiny or barely noticeable at the start.
Like that amazing metaphor about ice ages.
Yeah, tell that one.
You don't need some massive, sudden global freeze to cover the planet in ice. All you need is summers that are just slightly cooler than usual.
So the snow from the previous winter doesn't quite melt away completely.
Right, just a little bit left over. But that leftover snow reflects more sunlight, which makes it a bit cooler, which means more snow stays the next year.
And suddenly this tiny initial difference, this leftover snow, starts building on itself year after year until you get these unbelievable, logic-defying results like mile-thick ice sheets.
And that tiny starting base just left alone for decades, that's basically Warren Buffett's secret sauce, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, his
Yeah.
net worth is astronomical, like $84.5 billion or something. But get this,
What?
$84.2 billion of that came after his 50th birthday.
No way, after 50.
Yeah, he started investing seriously when he was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
His success isn't just about being a great investor, though he is. It's overwhelmingly about time. 75 years of letting that compounding work its magic.
We always focus on his amazing annual returns, but the real superpower is just longevity, staying in the game.
Exactly. There's that hedge fund guy, Jim Simons. Incredible mathematician. His fund's returns since like the late 80s have actually been way higher than Buffett's, like almost 3 times higher per year.
Wow. So why isn't he richer than Buffett?
Because he only really got going later in life. He had fewer decades for the compounding to go wild. Buffett had the skill plus the 75-year runway. Time in the market beats timing the market almost always.
Okay. Time is crucial, which leads to another really important point the sources make. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy.
Oh yeah, totally different ball games.
No, you're
Require
stuck there.
completely different mindsets.
Getting money often takes, what? Optimism. Taking some risks. Pushing things a bit.
Definitely. You got to
Yeah.
put yourself out there.
Right.
But keeping it, that requires almost the opposite. It takes humility, frugality, and honestly, a certain amount of paranoia.
The paranoid survive idea, like from Intel or Sequoia Capital.
Exactly that. Survival is the name of the game for staying wealthy.
So how did Richard Fuscone, the Harvard guy, the expert, forget that? How did he miss the survival part?
Well, the sources suggest he was impatient. And it brings up another cautionary tale. Rick Guerin,
Who was he?
a contemporary Buffett and Charlie Munger back in the day, apparently just as smart, brilliant guy. But he was in a hurry.
In a hurry, and he was leveraged up, using margin loans.
Heavily leveraged, yeah.
Okay, hang on. Let's just quickly explain margin loans for anyone listening. What are they and why are they risky?
Sure. So a margin loan is basically debt you take on using your investments, like your stocks, as collateral. You borrow against your portfolio.
To try and juice your returns, right?
Yeah.
Amplify the gains.
Exactly. Leverage. But the big danger is if the market drops, the value of your collateral, your stocks, falls too. And the lender gets nervous and issues a margin call demanding you add more cash to the account or
They just sell your stocks for you.
foresell them, yeah. Often at the absolute worst time, when the market's down, locking in your losses to cover their loan. It's like a time bomb that only works if the market keeps going up on your schedule.
Okay, got it. So back to Rick Guerin. He was smart, but leveraged and impatient.
Right. And then the brutal 1973-74 market crash hit. The market fell something like 70%.
Ouch.
And Guerin, because he was so leveraged, got those margin calls. He was forced to sell everything, including his shares in Berkshire Hathaway. Apparently, he sold them to Buffett.
Wow. Forced out of the game completely because he couldn't withstand the downturn. He wasn't unbreakable.
Exactly. The ultimate skill isn't getting the absolute highest return each year. It's making sure you're financially unbreakable so you can stay in the game long enough for compounding to actually do its thing. Survival first.
Okay. Survival, humility, patience. That links to the next danger zone. The moving goalpost, the idea of never enough.
Oh, this one's tough. Probably the hardest financial skill, honestly. Getting the goalpost to just stop moving.
Because if every time you hit a new level of income or net worth, your desires and expectations instantly jump even higher.
You feel just as dissatisfied as before, but now you have to take even bigger risks just to try and catch up to your own new expectations. It's a dangerous cycle.
And this is how really successful people can completely blow themselves up. There's that great Joseph Heller quote.
Oh, the Kurt Vonnegut one about Heller at the billionaire's party?
That's the one. But Vonnegut says something like, that billionaire hedge fund manager made more money yesterday than you made from Catch-22 in its entire history.
And Heller replies,
Yes, but I have something he will never have.
enough. Boom. Just perfect. Having enough.
And the tragedy is when people who have enough objectively still risk it all. Like Rajat Gupta.
Yeah, the former McKinsey CEO.
Yeah.
Had something like $100 million net worth. Global respect. Everything.
So why get involved in insider trading? Why risk literally everything?
Because he was surrounded by people even richer, like billionaires. He felt he needed more status, more access, more everything. He risked what he had and absolutely needed for something he didn't have and definitely didn't need.
Same dynamic with Bernie Madoff, right? Before the Ponzi scheme blew up, he was already incredibly successful.
Totally legitimate. Running a massive, successful market-making firm, earning like $25 to $50 million a year.
Legally.
Envy. Comparison.
Eric?
The relentless desire for more, even when you've already won the game by any sane measure,
Yeah.
it drove them both to ruin. That's not a math error, that's a behavioral flaw. Deeply human, but incredibly destructive.
And often the more we chase, it's about signaling status to others, which leads to that funny idea, the man in the car paradox.
Right. We buy things, like a fancy car, thinking, wow, people will see this and think I'm cool, successful, admirable.
But when you see someone driving a Ferrari, do you think, wow, that driver must be an amazing person?
Haha, no. You usually think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I was cool.
Exactly. You're using their car as a benchmark for your own desires and how you imagine others would see you.
The admiration or respect the driver thinks they're buying,
Yeah.
it mostly just gets reflected back onto the observer's own ego. Money spent on flashy status symbols often backfires in terms of generating genuine respect.
So if spending on status is kind of a trap, what's the real highest benefit of having money? What actually boosts well-being?
Okay, this is maybe the most powerful idea in the whole thing. The highest dividend money pays. It's control over your time.
Control over your time.
Yeah. There was this psychologist, Angus Campbell, whose research found that having a strong sense of controlling your own life, deciding what you do when you do it, with whom, is a way more dependable predictor of happiness than your salary or the size of your house or your job title.
That makes intuitive sense. Feeling like you're the pilot of your own life, not just a passenger.
Exactly. And using your savings not necessarily to buy more stuff, but to buy options and time. That provides a level of day-to-day well-being that very few luxury goods can ever match.
It really is the ultimate form of freedom, isn't it? Like, think about someone grinding away 80 hours a week in a high-paying job they hate with zero control over their schedule.
Versus someone maybe earning less, living more simply, but who has enough saved up that they can confidently walk away from a toxic job or take a few months off to figure things out or wait for the right opportunity.
Those savings bought them freedom, optionality.
That flexibility, that optionality, its value is almost impossible to calculate on a spreadsheet, but it's immense. It's the real return.
Okay, this is all really insightful on the psychology side, but how do we translate this into like a practical way to manage money, knowing we're emotional creatures, not robots?
Well, the sources emphasize being reasonable over rational.
Reasonable over rational. What does that mean exactly?
It means stop chasing the perfect mathematically optimal strategy, because those strategies usually assume you can predict the future, and more importantly, they assume the human involved will act like a perfectly rational machine.
Which we know we don't, especially when things get scary, like in a market crash.
Exactly. So instead of aiming for optimal, aim for reasonable. Aim for a strategy that's good enough, but crucially one that you can actually stick with emotionally through thick and thin over the long haul.
There's a fantastic example of this with Harry Markowitz.
The Nobel Prize winner for portfolio theory, the godfather of rational diversification.
That's him, the ultimate finance geek. But when it came to his own retirement money, guess how he invested it?
Let me guess. Some incredibly complex, optimized allocation based on his own theories.
Nope. 50-50, half in stocks, half in bonds.
Seriously. Nobel laureate. 50-50.
Yep. And his reason. He said he wanted to minimize his future regret. He knew himself. He knew that simple 50-50 split, while maybe not mathematically perfect, was the one he was least likely to panic and abandon during a market meltdown.
Wow. So even the genius recognized that sticking with a good enough plan you can tolerate emotionally is way better than a perfect plan you're likely to bail on at the worst possible moment.
Reasonable beats rational if it keeps you in the game.
Absolutely. Sticking with
Okay.
a plan is more important than the plan itself, often.
And this idea of sticking with it, of surviving the inevitable bumps, leads right into the final core concept, having a margin of safety.
Benjamin Graham's classic idea. The purpose of a margin of safety, he said, is to render the forecast unnecessary.
Love that. Don't need a crystal ball if you have a big enough cushion.
Exactly. A margin of safety is just room for error. It's a buffer between what you expect to happen and what could actually happen that still allows you to survive and keep going.
Because the world runs on odds and probabilities, not certainties. Stuff will go wrong. Surprises happen.
All the time, and usually at the worst moments. So the only safe way to navigate that uncertainty is to build in buffers, to assume your forecasts will be wrong sometimes.
It's kind of like that blackjack card counter example, right?
Yeah, explain that one.
Even a really good card counter, who knows they have a statistical edge over the house, maybe only has like a 2% edge overall.
Which means the casino still wins almost half the hands, like 49% of the time, just due to random luck in the short term.
Right, so the card counter can't just bet everything on one hand, even knowing they have an edge. They need a huge bankroll, like maybe 100 times their standard bet.
A massive margin of safety.
Exactly. To absorb those inevitable runs of bad luck, those swings, so they can stay at the table long enough for their tiny 2% edge to actually pay off over thousands of hands, they need endurance.
Endurance is everything, especially in investing, where the really big gains tend to happen infrequently, often clustered together, and over very long periods. You have to be able to stick around.
So having that room for error, maybe it's extra cash that's earning almost nothing, or not being fully invested, or avoiding debt. That's what lets you survive a job loss, or a health crisis, or a market crash without being forced to sell.
And that survival, that endurance, becomes your secret weapon. It lets you stay invested and actually benefit from long-term compounding, which, at the end of the day, is the only reliable way serious wealth gets built.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what are the key takeaways for you listening right now? It really seems to boil down to focusing on what you can control.
Absolutely. You can control your savings rate. You can control your own expectations, your humility. You can control your time horizon, how long you plan to stay invested.
But you can't control next year's market returns. You can't control luck. You definitely can't control what other people do or how they behave.
So put your energy into the controllables. Save consistently. Be patient. Be humble about the future. Build in that margin of safety.
And remember that great irony about wealth. What you see, the fancy cars, the big houses, the designer clothes, that's not wealth. That's just money that's been spent.
Right. True wealth is often invisible. It's the income that wasn't spent. It's the stocks never sold, the assets quietly compounding.
Wealth is the option to buy stuff later, or maybe never.
And maybe the most powerful reason to build that invisible wealth, to save money, isn't even for a specific goal, like a house or retirement down the line.
What is it then?
It's to build a buffer. A hedge against, as the source puts it, life's inevitable ability to surprise the hell out of you at the worst possible moment.
Aha, yeah, life does that.
Having that cushion, that flexibility to handle the unexpected without being derailed. That gives you a sense of control and peace of mind that's priceless.
Well,
That's the ultimate incalculable return.
that flexibility, that optionality, that's the real asset.
So the final thought maybe to leave you with is this. Forget searching for the one single rational right answer in finance. It probably doesn't exist.
There's only the answer that works for you.
It's exactly. Define the game you are playing. What's your goal? Is it maximizing status symbols? Or is it maximizing your independence and control over your time?
And once you know your game, respect the messiness. Respect your own emotions, your own history, your own tolerance for regret. Build a strategy that's reasonable for you.
Because when you do that, you realize that while the math of money might be simple, mastering the psychology of it, well, that's the real challenge and maybe the real reward.